All right.
All right. Second little housekeeping announcement is that once we start our presentation, I'm going to ask that you mute yourself and turn your cameras off, unless you want to be on camera. You don't need to be. And our presenters, our speakers are going to be primarily Michael Jebber, who's going to be sort of kicking us off, interviewing Gerri Hoffman from Bevcorp. And the conversation they're going to be talking about, I'm just going to give it a brief, it's business agility in the trenches. So it's really about how Gerri and her team of leaders at Bevcorp implemented ways and means to adapt, organize around the rapid change that we're all going through right now. So with that, I am going to turn my camera off and I am going to turn it over to Michael.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. And thank you, Gerri, very much for graciously offering up your insights into your real life experiences that you've experienced and are continuing to experience in the business agility space. So I think one thing that I forgot to add as a question to ask you when we were talking earlier was have you give a little brief description of Bevcorp. What does Bevcorp do? Because I think it's really important to understand that business agility applies to all kinds of industries and all kinds of businesses, right? So what is it that Bevcorp does?
Bevcorp manufactures large equipment to fill bottles and cans for the beverage industry. So think Coke, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, those are our main customers. Those big machines that spin at 1,000 cans a minute or 1,200 cans a minute, that's what we manufacture here in the facility. We have a large service team that works outside of here, servicing our customers, and also, of course, replacement parts for all of those fillers that are out in the industry. We also have a blender and a seamer division that helps bring all of that together for our customers and complete an entire line. So I like to tell people to think of Laverne and Shirley, although that shows my age a little bit. But if you remember the spinning thing at the beginning.
That's actually what I thought of when I first was introduced to you all. And I was like, I can't say that because it's going to show how old I am, right?
I know. I'm willing to do that. But that is what we do.
It's a really cool facility. It's really cool what they do as well. So So let's talk about Bevcorp's journey, right? Where did this all start, and what was the reasoning behind the need for, we'll call it, for lack of a better phrase, the need for more business agility? Where did all this start for you and for Bevcorp as a leadership group?
So I came on board about 5 years ago. And Bevcorp was just starting to really look at changing, and a lot of it was cultural changes that we needed to start with. When we came in, or when I came in, I was a process manager at one of the divisions here. And we looked at, the current situation. We looked at a lot of tribal knowledge, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, and knowing that we had to adapt. We had to figure out how to get some of that tribal knowledge and distribute it amongst the teams, and then get the leadership behind it. So as I kind of grew throughout that team, we created what we called a guiding coalition. So I know everybody's kind of talked about the guiding coalition from the John Cotter books. And we had a guiding coalition. We had what we called the Advocates of Change. It was a group of us that started this change process. But at the beginning, it was very much that we were just supporting each other in the change, or supporting each other in the decisions we were making. And it wasn't until recently that we really started to implement the DRI structure, created a new group of people, and that group of people is more collaborative, not just helping support the decisions, but really becoming part of the decision-making process.
Hi, Gerri. It looks like Mike lost power, so he's getting back on. So while he gets back on, I think I will continue the questioning. I'm really curious about what what prompted the change from a couple of years ago? What was the sort of the catalyst or the burning platform?
We were growing so much, so fast. And new people were coming in all the time. So really trying to figure out the best way to teach, the best way to learn, the best way to improve processes so that we could keep growing. Ever since I've been here, it's been continual growth and really trying to get our heads wrapped around that, knowing that we had to set ourselves up for, all of this continued growth as we move forward.
Okay, so there was a realization that there was a lot of growth happening, and as a company, you needed to get more aware of how to respond to those changes, I guess, in the marketplace.
Yep. Well, not just changes in the marketplace, but changes in not being able to hire people that knew the industry, right? So the new folks that were coming in and the new people that we needed to bring in to help manage the day-to-day didn't have the same tribal knowledge that the group of people that we were indebted to, right? Because the people that had created this organization, the new folks didn't have that skill set, didn't have that amount of tribal knowledge, of course. So how do we train them? How do we try to start passing that stuff over and changing the culture along with it?
Got it. So, I mean, I don't know if this is true or not. I certainly don't know that you intended for this to be, a movement that improved, at least not the language, let's improve our business agility. I'm sure that wasn't part of the conversation, right?
Never part of it.
Never part of
That
it.
word
So
didn't come up.
it didn't come up. So to you, what is business agility?
It being able to pivot, right? Being able to go with the flow, being able to move in a new direction, and at the
It's
same
like this
time,
meeting.
right. I'm just rolling with it.
Go.
Being able to not just that, but to teach others why we need to do that, right? Like encourage people why we need to, show visibility and get that consensus from everybody, right? The sooner we do it as a leadership group, the faster those that report to us and the folks that work out on the floor and the folks that, pass us by on a daily basis will get on board with it too. Right. So it's not until, I told Mike earlier, every good organization is built on trust. Right. And if I trust my leadership, which they became supportive of us, then they're trusting us to make the decisions we need for the organization. And then all of a sudden the teams beneath us, right? The folks that we're managing, the folks that we're leading now trust us, who then in turn trust leadership. It's just all, it's really, really telling, like that bottom of that pyramid that we've all read the books on is all about trust. And once that trust starts developing and you can share that trust with others that you lead, the more powerful it becomes for the entire organization.
Awesome. So Mike's back. I'm going to go back on mute and hide myself, and I'll be in the background.
I hope I'm impromptu here.
and I'll catch up because the power just went out. So welcome to live, right? Exactly.
I was a little worried. I thought you were gone. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I was back in the closet trying to get the router restarted and the whole deal, right? So that was fun. So just to make sure that I've caught up on this, we talked about where this all started and how it got going. How did actually this manifest itself in terms of the tactical activity? How did you all decide to get together, and what did you do to start to build this environment where trust was building and growing and interactions were changing and those relationships were changing as you went through?
Yep. So we, like I mentioned, we had all started with a group a while back, that Guiding Coalition, but it never really picked up. Like we did a few little projects here and there, but it was really more support of the people that felt like they were on an island, right? You know, when you're the change initiators, right? You're at the front of that bell curve.
Mhm.
Sometimes you just need additional support, right? And people nodding their head telling you that you're doing the right thing. And so we called that the Guiding Coalition, the AOC. And then just last year, Mike came in with his folks, and we took a problem which affects all of us. It's how do we get parts out the door? And AOC is Advocates of Change. That's what that stood for. So we took the parts problem, which touched all of us that were part of this group. And as we diagrammed it all out and put flow to it, you know, it wasn't really about, I mean, yes, we have ideas on how to solve the parts problem, but it really became about how we all work together.
Right.
And introducing relationships that didn't exist in the past. You know, I think we were all passing ships in the wind kind of thing. And as we all sat in a meeting once a week, and we have a cadence where everybody's realizing what other people are working on every week, we're finding ways to help each other. We're finding ways to help support, not just support the decision of that person, but actually help develop the decision of that group, you know, and offer advice. You know, there's tons of us, and I don't know about you, but I'll sit after work and brainstorm all day long, right? And we had a group of people that loved brainstorming and throwing ideas out, and now it's really trying to get that team to execute and stay on task. And we have weekly meetings, and we've all kind of broken up into little subgroups of things. Certain things, you know, take more resources than others. And depending on who's part of that, or who that crosses paths with, we group those folks together and have meetings. So it's really just, you know, that collaboration piece. And it's really just about building the relationship. Like, not that we didn't do a lot of work putting a bunch of Post-it notes on a wall, but the fact that we opened up communication amongst people who may have not even thought they had a friend in the world, you know, we really just started there, and I've made great strides since then.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting finding that one topic that everybody could kind of chew on for a bit, right? They could align around, and everybody got to see everyone else's pain inside of that flow, right? And all the challenges and the things that they deal with. And, oh, you deal with that too? Or, oh, I didn't know you dealt with that. And just these ahas going on around the room that happened over several weeks last summer, right? Last summer that was. So it was really fun to watch that dynamic build and the dynamics between the people build. And it was really a perfect case of where agility's strength is around the fact that it helps humans interact better with other humans. So this idea of business agility was proving out to be real and manifesting itself in a real way, just in the relationship building that was happening amongst DRI respective peers in different parts of the company. Because I don't know if you mentioned it when I was off, you know, the Bevcorp East Lake plant runs without a plant manager. There's no plant manager in the factory, and that is not a common thing in manufacturing. Northeast Ohio is a big manufacturing base from way back when, and that you don't walk into many plants where that's happening. So it's very interesting to see that start to manifest itself. I see there's a question here around who's in charge. Do you care to talk a little bit about how that interaction works right now with the group, and how that interaction works, the group with other leaders within senior leaders within the organization?
Yeah, I can try. How's that?
Sure.
I will tell you, when we first started this collaboration, everybody's like, oh, we need a director of operations that's going to help all of this, right? It was a solution that was put up on the wall, and we talked about it for a really long time. And I think as the months went along, and we all realized how well we could collaborate together and make decisions together, we realized we didn't need that person. Like, there were enough of us that had everybody's or every department's best interest in mind, right? We came from sales, we came from planning, we came from production, quality, like everybody was had an equal kind of vested interest. And we were able to make decisions as a group, and move forward. And I'm going to tell you, it's not without conflict. It's not without some very passionate conversations that we've had. But at the end of the day, we all kind of get in a safe space, right? We all get to where we understand that maybe our way isn't the best way. And you have some very strong people on this team, I will tell you without a doubt. But we've figured out how to get there and how to bounce things, off of each other and rationalize them and get them sorted out to figure out what makes the most sense for the organization. And at the end of the day, if we can't come to a resolution amongst the team, we've got leadership supporting us, so and we've got an open door with leadership. We very quickly can call senior leadership and say, hey, we're kind of stuck. Which direction do you want us to go? But when we've been through all of those conversations, we usually have a very solid, here's the pros, here's the cons, here's what both sides
You're
are
giving leadership a lot of data to make
Correct.
that decision, and you're
Correct.
bringing them into the fold. They're not making it blind, right? Yeah.
Correct. Prior to this team, I would say that leadership had to make decisions based on what people's guts were, right? And sometimes those were, people that may had an old thought process, like a previous, this is kind of that tribal knowledge coming out. And now that we've got this group, we can talk through, okay, well, if we make this decision based on tribal knowledge, we get here, right? But if we make this decision based on new innovative ways to go, then we get here, so at least balances it out, trying to get through those muddy waters when we make the decisions.
Absolutely. And in your role, I forget to mention this at the beginning, your sales and production scheduling leadership, right?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
I know it's a lot of multiple hats, but there's, to your point, the group that's gotten together was an attempt to get folks that were very interested in moving things forward and making a difference. Yep. And representing, like you said, that value stream, the entire value chain of a Bevcorp request, whether it be for services or products or parts, whatever, and then the delivery of that value, right, all the way to the end, right, including the service organization who goes on site. And there's a big effort. I learned a lot from your company around the effort it takes to maintain those lines and everything you do with your customers and how much they value you for what you do for them and everything else. And that all comes back into the fold whenever you all make those decisions. Now I've watched it happen. It's amazing to see how that dynamic has changed and how quickly it actually did change when kind of everybody got together and said, we have an opportunity here and leadership's giving it to us. Yeah. That's kind of where I want to pivot to next is talk about what leadership has done, senior leadership within the organization, because moving to you all to do this, and you're continuing on that trend this year by continuing to move decision-making even closer to the work, even closer to the shop floor, closer to the customer floor, and all those decisions. How has leadership been instrumental in making that happen? And what has leadership done to not only get this started, but support it and nurture it to allow it to grow?
So right out of the gate, first and foremost, they hired a team to come in and help us, right? Like they hired Mike to come in and help support this. So right out of the gate, that they're putting an effort, they're putting their money where their mouth is, right? Like we're not going to continue on the path. We need to really support this change. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but the trust and the partnership that we all have with senior leadership, being able to talk to them at any time, if we so choose, is, that's the basis of how this team is getting built, being able to bounce ideas or take those ideas that we had, or even those conflicts that we had to senior leadership and say, help us sort this out. What is your vision moving forward, and kind of that open door policy. I know myself, I kind of had that open relationship already, but some of the folks that joined this team at the very early stages, maybe didn't have what they thought was that support. And now that they have that and they understand that senior leadership is backing all of us up, they're much more open to making decisions. They're much more open to collaborating with all of us to get there, and they'll every now and then they'll ask for guidance because somebody has been dealing with senior leadership longer than they have. How do I talk to them if I need this? If I, how do I sweeten the pot a little bit?
Yeah.
We all do it,
The
right?
personas, the personalities involved. Exactly. Right.
Right. And it's really just building that relationship and not, talking about the visibility of what we're doing, right? And making sure that leadership's involved in that stuff. We include them in some of the meetings that we're doing. We report out what's going on. There's now 2 teams here running at Bevcorp. There's the East Lake Excellence team, which is the group that I'm talking about. And then there's a strategic team that's working on strategic initiatives and moving forward. And there's all kind of a reporting structure, and quarterly we're asked for, presentation slides to tell everybody what we've been working on.
And they're sharing back and forth of the information from both of those groups. You guys have visibility, right?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's amazing because it's not easy for senior leaders to
give up the reins.
Yeah. And you have, I would say, very innovative, very thoughtful, modern leaders at your organization. And they are really a big part of the success, I would say. But that's not easy. But you all have done a really amazing job at making them feel comfortable and confident in their decision to see this happen. And to your point, that trust factor has been built both ways. And to seeing the support that you've had is really, really cool. And I think getting little wins at the beginning really, really helps, right? We talk, how did you go about showing some small wins at the beginning to kind of reward the leadership in terms of their effort and giving you this opportunity, right? To say, hey, look, we're taking this seriously, and this is what we're going to do.
So I'm a very data driven person. Like, I like it to be very black and white. And sometimes it wasn't always black and white because small things sometimes are super simple and people don't think of them as big progress. Right. We unfortunately, not sure, we moved into a new building. So it was easy for us to have an opportunity to say, what has this new building done for us?
But you did it in the middle of COVID, didn't you? It was like March of 2020 or April, right? At the beginning of that whole mess.
We started transitioning to the new building, but we were officially moved in March of 2021. So,
okay.
But we had kind of started the whole moving process and tearing machines apart and whatnot. So yeah, not only did we send everybody home, but then we had to pack everything up and put it into a new building. And
3 plants into one, 3 cultures into one, 3 completely operating dynamics that had gone on for decades, multiple decades, right?
Correct.
Right.
But that really gave us an opportunity to start showing the little wins, right? The easy stuff, right? Pick the fruit off the bottom of the tree kind of thing. We had, ROIs on steps and how much closer some of this stuff was. So I think when we were able to show that, and that was taken to the board, right? Because of course we needed to prove to our parent company and our even bigger parent company that this move was good for us. So we really had a great opportunity in front of us with high level visibility that allowed us to shine really quickly. And show some of those really quick wins that we had.
That's fantastic. And I think we're half hour in. I'd like to be able to open this up for we have some questions coming in, it looks like, on the chat board.
Yep.
And I want to be able to, if you have a question, you can feel free to type it in, or you can feel free to go ahead and open your mic up. We've got a small enough group here to open your mic up and ask the question, because we can start some dialogue here with Gerri. And we've got a question here. How did you get leaders to give up the reins? This is from Vicky.
I didn't personally. No, I give all the credit to our leadership team. really open to looking at changing culture, being innovative, and really trying to grow. Like some of it was out of necessity, of course, but really taking it and saying, I have to allow this to happen, right? I think here we were all so overwhelmed, all of leadership and senior leadership and whatnot, that at some point you have to give up the reins a little bit. But starting way back in that AOC day, when we were having those collaborative conversations then, and I say it didn't get as far, but I think what we did do at that point was establish some of this relationship, some of this trust with the senior leadership, so that they knew when they were ready to create this team, they already had some of us, right? They already had some of us change leaders on board. And at that point, they trusted us. We had bounced decisions off of them. We had taken some of that collaborative effort and put it towards certain projects. So although I say that it didn't go as well as we wanted it to, and we all thought we were just being supported in our decision making, I really think what it did was establish the groundwork for creating those relationships we needed with senior leadership, so that they felt confident enough to pass those reins over. Like,
it sounded like they primed the well for that primed the well for what came after.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So I think that's important to know, is like, it doesn't happen first time, right? In a lot of cases, it doesn't happen first time, but that idea around what did you establish that you can build on and grow from, I think is really important. And I can say that working with you, I know that there were times where leadership was kind of like, no, you're good. They're there. They're all, this is part of the growth process. Letting them fall off the bike and get back on again. That's part of it. That's part of learning the bike. So I think it was interesting to see how much faith and trust you had built, because their natural tendency when someone would fall off a bike was to go help them. It's like, no, they've got it. They've got this, right? And it's amazing to see a year later how much they got it. Yeah, you guys are really rolling.
Yeah, don't give up. Don't give up ever. Yes.
Yeah, don't give up is a good response.
I have a question, and that is, the leaders, you give credit to the leaders that sort of supported this change, right? You kind of defer a lot of the credit to them, that they did this, they wanted to see this type of change. I'm curious, what prompted that change, that mindset shift, if you will, like, so letting go of the reins. It's a conscious, intentional decision to make as a leader, to say, okay, I'm not going to make all the decisions anymore. I think that's the wrong way to lead. I'm going to lead differently. What was it?
I can tell you from my own experience, and Mike has talked to senior leadership a little bit more frequently about this kind of stuff, but I can tell you from my own experience, because I've got somebody right now that I'm really trying to develop into taking my role, right? So what that takes for me, and knowing that I'm going to have to give up some of that decision making at some point, probably very soon, is establishing that trust, that respect, that I tell my entire team on a regular basis, like, I'm never going to fault you for making a decision, right? Just come to me and tell me the logic that got you to that decision, and we're going to talk through how that decision was good or how that decision was bad, so the next time you know the difference, right? I've got team members that will call me just to brainstorm through things, and they'll start talking about the decision they want to make, and you always ask them what the decision is. Don't make it for them. And you just develop that relationship, and they know they can bounce anything off of you, having that open door policy. One of the things that I've talked to Mike about here, now that we have this DRI structure, I've got people in my office every day. They're not my team. My entire team works remotely, so it's somebody else, but we've established this DRI structure, and these folks are coming. I mean, they're coming in here to bounce ideas off of, just talk through things, just be supportive and help guide in a way that they make the best decision for the company and themselves too, and just having company oriented people that are all looking for the betterment of all of us is just that big step in the right direction.
Yeah. Real quick, Kumar, do we want to keep recording? I'm okay to do so.
It's a small group. If it's okay with everyone else, and for everyone in the community, you can turn your cameras on. There's like a million questions coming up in my head, and I'm hoping I'm channeling some of the things that you're thinking about. I will ask on your behalf.
There's one question from Vicky, a second one, and it kind of dovetails into what you were asking there, Kumar, real well. How did you put the group together, Vicky? And you can feel free to ask that.
Elaborate.
Any details you want, come off mic or whatever.
The group was really put together by senior management. So knowing that we were handpicked to be a part of this group, again, built that trust, built that confidence that somebody is depending on me to jump into this role and kind of move forward. And I'll be honest, we had some folks that dropped out. Either they thought they couldn't provide value or they were too busy or whatever. But those of us that stuck it out really have just established this really great team of individuals that is, kind of firing on all cylinders and moving in the right direction. So, and some of us were picked because we were in a management role. Some of us were picked because we were really change agents and looking for that shift. Thank goodness the group of us that was picked all worked together really well. But we all have very different personalities too. So.
And you didn't, there was growth there, right? Not all those relationships were you didn't have the environment and the structure to be able to interact the way you do now. So you didn't get that knowledge and that ability to understand and collaborate with each other. And I saw that grow over the last year as well. And to your point, some folks were picked because they were the best representative for a part of the value stream. And we wanted to have the whole value stream represented as best possible because we wanted everybody to see all the different mindsets and the different challenges, the different parts of everything that happened as a product or a service or a request flows through the organization and the plant, and to be able to have all of those points of view represented.
So a question, this is Vicky, regarding the value stream. You are, like a lot of these terms you use, since I'm not in the US, I'm behind on times with those terms.
You're
So
okay.
with the value stream, were you saying that those are people from each different departments? Like you had service department, sales department, production, products, leadership. So you just picked different people from that groups and then put them together. Now, how do you deal with it when you get all these people together? And then, like you were talking about personalities and stuff, and then some people are too strong, or how do you take them out so that it helps, like you said, the company, and then the connection with everybody and the freedom to speak? How did you all balance that? Because if you've been doing it for what, how long, how many years?
Just a year.
Okay, well,
Like-
you've already hit quite a few bumps and
We
hurdles
have.
and stuff like that. So any tips?
So I will tell you, I'll be 100% honest with you all. When they got us all together, they're like, oh, they're putting all of us in the same room because we're the people that cause all the problems, right? Full transparency here, I am a very strong personality, and I like to throw ideas out, and I can get very passionate about certain ideas. One of the things that I have found just in of myself, I needed to open up on a personal level with these folks, and really let them know who I was and be empathetic to who they are. One of the gentlemen that has joined this group, and in all honesty, I hadn't talked to him more than I don't know, 5 times before this group started. He and I have gotten to a personal level where he was driving down to Florida 2 days ago and sent me photos of his daughter swimming with sharks. So like, and just knowing that he felt comfortable enough to send me that picture, and again, this relationship never even existed prior to last July. Really opening up to allow you to have some feelings and be empathetic towards relationships, because I'll tell you that I find it far easier to coach somebody and have, hard conversations with people if I know them on a personal level. If I know sometimes it makes things more difficult because now you got to have really stern conversations with people that you've really grown to know and care about. But at the same time, you can be a whole lot more frank with them and a whole lot more honest, because they know where you're coming from. They know you're not coming from a bad place. They know it's just a passion of yours or whatnot. So I know myself that the person that I'm developing to take over my role is very much like that. It's a person that I am probably harder on than most because I have that extended relationship with her, and it's easier to kind of develop or to coach that behavior or uncoach a behavior.
I'll say this too, on the team itself, not everyone was at the same level of management, we'll call it org chart level. In fact, there was some concern around, well, this person's a manager of this person. Yeah, but that wasn't necessarily the criteria for selecting the group. A lot of it was, do we have representation from all of the elements of the value stream of the business, the operating business of the Bevcorp plant of Eastlake? Second part was, are they passionate about improvement, about change? Are they interested in change? Are they willing? Do they want to innovate? Is that interest there? Do we think that they're going to be good collaborators, and people that are going to want to work with people because the interest to improve is so inherently natural to them, and that's a drive that they have. It drives that need that they'll work with other folks. And it was interesting because when the group got together and they're looking around there, it's like not everybody's at the same management level, and that wasn't normal either, right? To have, in fact, a few people were reported to other people in the room in some cases when it started out, and even today that's the case. So
that brings more, I guess it kind of makes me think about this question more deeply, and you've mentioned a couple of times in this conversation about DRIs. Can you elaborate a little bit more about what is a DRI, and I think it relates to what you just shared, Mike, in terms of DRIs in the room, but maybe not.
Well, I'll have Gerri Ann talk about their DRI structure and kind of how that came about. So.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, directly responsible individuals, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So regardless of whether you're manager or not, you're responsible for a certain area of the value stream, right? So maybe you're not managing anybody, but you're the scheduling person. You're responsible for that piece of the value stream, right? We don't have anybody like that, but the folks that were part of this were really those folks. We've got somebody that was responsible for the inventory side, and someone that was responsible for quality, and someone responsible for the service side. And regardless of whether they were actually managing a team or not, they knew that piece of the pie,
the space,
right? Right. We all get into a room, and those folks know enough and are innovative enough and are strategic thinking enough to say, here's where our problems are and here's where we need to get to, and that group of folks, we all look at each other as equals. Nobody's above anybody else. We don't really look at, I'm a manager, I'm a director, whatnot. It's really, we all just look at each other as the same type of folks in the same positions, whether we've got a team of 2 people or we have a team of 10. You know, we've got our space and we're responsible for our space and we know how to talk about our space, right? But we're not talking about our space and looking down on anybody else. We're just bringing that space to our conversations. And in fact, we've even implemented some opportunities where we're inviting others from the floor, as you say, you know, take it down to the floor level. We're inviting those folks to come to some of these meetings. We've really established some collaborative meetings that are showing some of these changes. And it wasn't until we all sat in a meeting and we're all like, you know what, we really should invite some of the other folks to these meetings, because everybody sits here and I'm sure you've all been part of, oh, they're in meetings all day long, right? So we decided to invite the other folks to come to the meeting so that they could see these changes. So now not only are we documenting things and we're talking about it every other week during a meeting, but now we're inviting the mechanic that's putting it together that called out a problem that's now on a log that we're fixing, so that doesn't become a problem that's been existing for 10 times before. You know, so he now sees action. So granted, it's made a little bit more work, because once people see that things are being done, they're anxious to tell you about everything that's ever been wrong.
The pull that you're working towards, right? We talk about that, about generating pull, the organization. Yep. And once you get to the adoption curve, when you start getting into the early majority, you're getting 30-40% of the population now is going, I want to be involved, like instantly. Like, no, oh, wow. Now we got, you know, we got all this capacity. We got all these people now that want our time.
Yeah,
it's interesting how you all are moving from being the agents of change to being a group of facilitators to help others be agents of change.
Yeah, it's huge. It's so huge. And I mean, this is a group of technicians and mechanics and whatnot that didn't think anybody was listening to them. Right? For years, ECRs would be crumpled up and thrown away or whatever it was, right? At least that's their perception. And now we're bringing them in on a bi-weekly meeting and we're talking about 100 things that we've fixed over the last 6 weeks. And this group of people is just overly excited about telling people like, hey, I dropped one of these screws and I need to replace it. Put it on your log. Like, they understand where this is all going and why it's happening. So it's super exciting. It really is. And it's taken a long time to get there. So I'll try to hold back my excitement, but
a lot of extra work on top of your regular jobs, because this is a voluntary role you all have taken on. It's not a full-time job. This is a voluntary role over and above your regular work that you've decided to take on. But it's been amazing to see the change. It's been fun for me to watch it. So I know there's a couple more questions here. What do you call your team from Vicky?
Our team is, we are called East Lake Excellence. So that was the new location of the building. So
East Lake, Ohio, right?
Yeah, East Lake, Ohio. So it was the East Lake Excellence team that we put together. But I mean, when we first started with that original group, we started calling ourselves Birds of a Feather and would meet at the bar at lunchtime and we'd just have conversation and no drinking involved. But anyway, that's after hours. But then we went to the Advocates of Change and now we're East Lake Excellence. So
wanted to see if there are any other questions from the group. We still have about 11 or 12 people here. You're welcome to put your questions in the chat, or if you're brave enough, you know, turn your camera on or turn your mic on and just blurt it out. I do have a question while people are thinking about theirs.
Well, I think we've got one here from Nitin.
Here we go.
How did or do you handle failures?
We fall off the bike and we get back on and we start pedaling again. You get knocked down and you get back up. I think there's a song. No, we you know, we all vent. We all get frustrated. The good part about us is we all vent together. We don't vent outside of our group for the most part. You know, we know that needs to stay within us, and we figure out how to move forward and either try it again, because sometimes sometimes it's just a matter of really trying to get somebody to really see what's going on, and sometimes you just need to redirect, and because we have such a diverse group of people, it's easy to get another idea to kind of direct us in a different direction. So bringing the failures back to the team and saying, hey, we can't make this happen, but, and then those other ideas from everybody else.
One thing I've seen, Gerri Ann, from that, and you talked about the venting, the maturation process, the maturity, and how that group has not gone from immature to mature, but how the maturity of the group of the time spent together has changed your relationships is when there was stress and failures. In the early stages, early on, sometimes there was venting to people about the other person. Now it's always venting to people about the problem. It's about the challenge. It's about you're always talking about the challenge with each other. It's never really about the individuals involved in the challenge or perceived to be involved in the challenge. And that was huge when you started seeing that happen. That was the tightening of the loop of the ball with the group. I thought that was really interesting to watch happen as a person from that side. So
well, and I'll be honest, being part of sales, I remember sitting through meetings where everybody's like, well, sales sold the wrong thing, right? And people don't realize that there's a group of folks that takes that very personally, and even myself, I'm a part of sales, so I'm taking that personally. And now, as we've shared that, like, hey guys, you understand that when you say this group of folks takes that personally, right? And now, as we're sitting in the meetings, we're all trying to be very cognizant of how we're directing those things. The process is broken. How do we quote it? Or it's no longer sales sold this wrong, as just that general statement. It's like, how did we get here from the process? And trying to look at fixing that stuff instead of directing it. And we're not perfect at it. I catch myself, my team, this team, whatever, like I do it a lot. And I apologize. I know I even said it in this meeting, but we're trying to keep that in the back of our mind and keep those statements to a minimum, and really look at the broader, what's the process need to be and not necessarily a person,
Yeah.
So,
Nitin,
right.
did that help out? Was that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah. So, I mean, along with that, sorry, if I may ask. So, you guys talked about wins and the failures, right? So, when do you guys kind of keep kind of things in track in terms of these were the wins, these were the failures? So, maybe from this failure, even from a failure, maybe you can learn something out of it, and I don't know, maybe think in a different direction and kind of come out with another win. Those kind of conversations also happened, I assume.
I don't think we look at anything as an ultimate failure. I think we just re-look at it and say, how do we tackle this in a different way? Mike turned us on to having Trello cards and a Trello board and moving things around and, looking at everything that we've been able to move into the win column and just keep track of that stuff. And then I would say that anything that we look at as a failure or maybe even a sticking point, it's still there. It's still something that we want to get back to. It may just not be the right time, or maybe we're not approaching it right, or maybe we need some additional input. There are times that we have to step outside of our DRI structure and ask for other input. We're not necessarily the people that are out in the field. We do have representation from service, but we don't have a service guy, or a service technician on the team. So sometimes we have to go out and ask, and sometimes we try to solve that stuff ourselves and then realize that we should have went out and asked first. We had a great scenario a couple weeks ago where it was just kind of the classic, this is what happens. Nobody asked questions. We got to the very end. We designed a $1,600 tool for something that could have been purchased for $30. Like, but nobody asked questions along the way. But the best part about that, because I would call that a failure on our part, right? The best part about that is we turned it into a great discussion topic of how did we get here and how do we not get here in the future? You know, we hashed it all out and said, well, why did we start designing a $1,600 tool? Why did we order the $1,600 tool? And how did we get this thing sitting on my desk that looks crazy, you know? And at the end of the day, we realized that this failure that we all looked at was going to be turned into, this process needs to change and everybody needs to be open to asking questions. And in all honesty, this whole failure came down to opening up more collaboration amongst the teams of those that are in this DRI structure. You know, the engineer who actually designed it needs to talk to the assembly technician that's actually out on the floor, you know, and the service technician that's at site, and open up those communications. So that's really where the steps are now that we're trying to develop even further. Our group is doing fine. We just need to push that down and make sure everybody else is collaborating.
We have one question here in the chat. It's maybe our final question, please, Gerri Ann, if you could answer that. And the question is from, I think, See My Mouse, perhaps. Since this is voluntary, do you find yourself overwhelmed quite a bit with your own work and frustrated in trying to help with this group? How do you work around that, if so?
I'm going to take a deep breath right now. Mike and I have had a couple of conversations about this. Yes, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that I don't find myself overwhelmed at times. It's a lot. But it's a lot knowing that you're such an integral part of the organization that you almost have to do it. And I obviously could have bailed out a year ago and said no, you know, but I am extremely passionate about making things efficient and making things work and looking at how do we continue to grow as a company. And so I actually would sit back and say, I need to be part of this group. I would feel bad if I wasn't part of this group. I love brainstorming. I love throwing ideas up on the board. I will tell you the biggest hurdle for myself is we have a whole lot of people that can throw ideas on the board and not enough people that can execute, just because of workload and whatever. But we keep plugging away at it. We keep, climbing the mountain one axe at a time kind of thing.
Well, and we talked about that, See My Mouse. We talked about that a lot. Like you said, a lot of times early on, we talked a lot about cadence, and we said, look, we're going to get some wins and we're going to have this adrenaline of success, and we're going to want to jump all in. And then we got to remember, oh, I have a regular day job. I forgot. I got to go back and do that. And that can't get dropped. Right. So having a cadence and having this thing work and know that it's not like a diet. It's a lifestyle change. It's going through and changing the way that I incorporate things. The seeing those wins, I don't know, Gerri, watching you all getting the value out of the wins and saying, I went through the hard conversations and we got something out of it. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. If we did this enough, how much could this help us on all the stuff that we're already overburdened with? And that enticement of future gains, starting to see the pot at the end of the rainbow, because it's getting closer and closer. You all have leaned in even harder, even though that it's taken a little more work to do it, with the idea that you can expedite the freedom that you're looking for at the end with the efficiencies and the effectiveness you're going for. And it's been interesting to watch, especially as we transition now from being the agents of change to becoming the group that helps facilitate and grow other change agents and makes those connections between engineer and assembly line guy, right? So it puts all that together and takes it down into the depth of the knowledge of the business, another layer deep. It's really fun to watch.
That's really great. We're just about out of time. We have about a minute left. If you have further questions, please do. If you're not already part of the community, please join the community. And there should be a link available. If not, I can reach out to those of you, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I can send you a link to join. It's free to join, and it's events like this that we try to host on a frequent basis, talking about cadence. Next week we have a deep dive on DRIs. So directly responsible individuals. So what is it? Where did it come from, and how can you implement DRIs in your organization? So keep an eye out for that event in our community, and join us, right, for that discussion. And thank you so much, Gerri Ann, for doing this, for coming on in the community and doing this.
Well, thank you for letting me be a part of it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to say that Gerri Ann was part of a leadership course that we all do, and that's how we met. I know you've been working with Mike for a while, and so I got the pleasure of meeting you through that leadership course, and I hope you stay in the community, stay involved. So thank you very much.
Gerri Ann, she's got a lot of great experiences that she can all leverage.
Thank you.
All right.
Very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Gerri Ann.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
See
Thank
all
you for
later.
inviting me so
You're
much.
welcome.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.